Hello, everybody. It's the Are You Screening podcast. I'm your host, areyouscreening.com's Ode Mark Eastman. And with me, as always, is co-host extraordinaire Shane Leonard.
Hello.
Man, that really got away from me today.
I know, it's okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of too many things at exactly the same time. I'm
Right.
thinking like Bad Monkey.
And don't run them
Why
out
are
of
you
order.
bad mouthing Bad Monkey?
Yeah.
What's going? What
Right.
is your cryptic?
Well, that used to be
reply there
ages ago when we would sit next to each other on the same phone line. It used to be fun to try to get each other just saying something goofy or weird right before we started because we were live on a schedule.
Right.
And then just, not like really purposely messing the other person up. But anyway,
I don't know. That just that threw me. Anyway, so this week we are going to be looking at a couple of streaming things, the Instigators and Jackpot that just came out recently on Apple.
Yeah.
And Jackpot
Amazon Prime, I think.
Yeah, I think
I don't think that's Netflix.
I think it's on Amazon.
Excuse me.
Anyway, and going forward, I just looking at things, and not that necessarily anyone cares all that much about this, but in the next month and a half to 2 months, we're probably going to be talking about a lot of streaming things.
Yeah.
In addition to whatever big thing when big things come out.
When things come out.
But looking ahead through to frankly, until about November 15th ish.
Yeah, that's
there are September, October, part of November. There are a lot of black holes.
Yeah,
leading up to when we finally start releasing all of the big stuff that we want to win awards. It's weird that it's the end of August and it's coming up that fast.
Yeah.
And there's so much of it. There are some things that are coming out that I'm fairly interested in, that are pretty cool. But there are, if you are super cinephile, which on the one hand, you probably are because you're paying attention to this at all. On the other hand, you're probably not, in the sense of actually going to the movies every week, because that is a rare.
Yeah.
That's a small demographic. But I was amazed looking forward right now. This is more like February into March kind of dead space. There's always a little gap, kind of October and maybe right at the beginning of November or something like that.
Yep.
There's usually some dead space there where nothing huge is coming out. But I don't know. It's
a horror film or two, but nothing. Yeah, there's a lot
of space coming up. And there's a lot of cool stuff coming out on streaming, whether it's big shows or whatever. There's the new season of Slow Horses is coming, which that show is awesome. If you have not,
I haven't seen that yet. I want to start that.
If you have not started watching that yet,
everybody says it's great.
Now is the time with the new season coming out, because you've got plenty of it now at this point to start binging. And it's got a new season. I cannot tell you how many people I talk to that just absolutely refuse to watch anything anymore, until there's 2 seasons.
Oh yeah, right. They're so binge headed.
Not only are they binge headed, but there are so many things and it's weird too, because it's kicking in early, right?
Yeah.
My one daughter is so pissed that Lockwood and Company got canceled after once that she is I'll watch old shows.
Oh, interesting.
There are people
That's
are
cool.
I mean, this was always sort of the case, but if you go back far enough, you couldn't, right? Because there wasn't enough options or whatever. But I've talked to so many people who are just so gun shy about being interested in a show when it first comes out. There's one season.
I'm going to invest in that and it's gone. I don't want
because it's now I'm going to go, this is my new favorite show, and then it's going to obviously get canceled, and then they're going to have to be pissed. And I mean, I just have talked to a lot of people who do that. They are I will I will binge the hell out of the thing
Mm-hmm.
when it's the third season's about to come out or whatever. So that's where you are with Slow Horses right now,
TV
because
has,
it's great and everyone has kept saying it's great.
yeah, I've
And
never heard
now there's
anyone.
another one coming.
I know a few people who've only watched the first season and they still stand, knowing that there's a season between what they've seen and not seen, and they're still like, you gotta start watching this. It's amazing. I'm like,
Right.
well, what if the second half really falls off? And they're like, dude, don't say that.
Right.
Like, don't even jinx it. Like, it's so good.
Really good. And God, what's his name?
Gary.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
why do I want to say Carrie Elways now?
I don't know. That's all I had.
Gary Cooper.
No. Anyway,
Anyway,
but that show is solid, and I'm pretty sure like yesterday, maybe it's tomorrow, but the new season of Only Murders in
I
the
was just going
Building.
to say that's today.
Oh, okay.
It starts today, which is huge in our house.
The new season of that is out, and that is a show that, first of all, obviously everyone has loved it for several seasons and everything.
Yeah.
That is a show that for me is probably one of the most surprising shows that I have seen in as long as I can think of, which is a long amount of time, that I'm totally surprised the next seasons are still good.
Yeah.
I loved the first season of that show, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, second season. And I'm like,
I haven't seen the second season yet because I'm one of those guys.
I don't have a lot of confidence in the second season. Like the show is just so weird and quirky.
Yeah.
And the, crazy characters or whatever. And I'm like, that is just too hard to maintain.
And uniquely magical in the first season where everything even the smallest goofy, weird side character or small red herring, you're like, oh my God, like everything seemed to really just work beyond measure, not just a little bit. I only know that today because we let our Hulu subscription fall, and I was asked,
and you got in trouble.
I was asked, do I want to watch the first episode tonight? And I thought, well, that's an easy no because we don't have it. And the look I got when I said we don't have it means when we get done with the show, I'm going to go home and we're going to have it.
Right.
There's no screwing around. But isn't it weird in a pop culture way that I don't think, maybe sports, the cynicism around television isn't like movies the same way because it's a bigger long-term investment to like watch. I don't know, one season could be 20 episodes or it could be 6, right? But people are very cynical about starting like a new show until it's established, like for seasons, because of that burning feeling. They don't want to get screwed over for 1 year. And that's so wild to me because it doesn't happen much with my friends with movies or music. Nobody really gets that bummed about a new book by the author they love. But TV, they're like, nah, man, I'm not in until it's 12, 20, 30 episodes in. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just give it a shot?
And the only other option is, the things that are just limited anyway, right? And and then you're like, well, I know it's
supposed to be.
I know it's over
finite
or whatever. But I've just talked to so many people, and I'm like kind of the same way too. Even though
see a lot of stuff,
I have my own weird thing. It's funny because like my kids ask me all the time, like, have you seen this? I'm like, I've seen the first 4 episodes.
Yeah, right. Everything is the first, right. Everything's the first 4.
And then, like I don't go back and watch the rest of it unless
it's really,
unless it's awesome or unless
I
really have to for whatever reason. And it's like, the next season of stuff will come out.
Yep.
And I'll be watching the old ones. My kids are like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you catching up? Why don't you know all that? Anyway.
That's funny.
So along the lines of that.
Oh yeah.
Before we hit these movies real quick, I wanted to just mention also Bad Monkey.
Yeah.
New show that's also on Apple. Vince Vaughn.
Oh God,
is in it.
Right. I confused Bad Monkey with HBO Chimp Woman. That's why I was like, I got something bad to say about that.
No.
I know Bad Monkey now. Excuse me.
Okay.
I was really thinking you were talking about the new Chimp series.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
There's the HBO it's sort of like Tiger King, except this woman is in love with
Uh,
chimps and she's
no,
constantly trying to
no,
keep them in her house. And
right, no,
despite all knowledge that they will rip your face literally off and
right,
eat you.
right.
Nah, she's like, I love Caesar.
I mean,
What
I
could
have
go
to watch
wrong?
that now, but no,
Yeah.
that's not
No, man.
that's
Okay,
not at
I'm
all
sorry.
what I was
Bad
saying.
monkey. Right.
Like
Vince Vaughn.
Hit Monkey
Yeah,
or
right.
what I don't know.
Right.
It's about a monkey.
I just heard chimp and I'm like, what?
No, so it's
Got it.
new show on Apple, and it's like new episodes on Wednesdays or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
Vince Vaughn is in it. It is a super weird show.
Yeah.
It's like kind of detective-y.
Yep.
And I've actually only seen so much of it, so I think that what I've seen of it might be out already, or
Oh, okay.
if not,
It's
like
pretty close.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
be like caught up because I've only seen like two or three or something.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked that out yet, though, it is a really cool
It's good.
show. It
Yeah.
like really kind of snuck up on me too, because I think it was like written for Vince Vaughn.
Oh,
It
okay.
might not have been,
Right. But it certainly seems.
but it seems like it
Yeah.
was just written for him, the character for him to be able to be this exact character.
Yeah. Right.
Like it's just
Right.
it's so Vince Vaughn.
And sometimes shows are tailored
feeling,
for
right?
people.
Right,
They're
right.
projects for people.
Right.
Vehicles.
But it is so like just his,
Huh. Him.
bantery,
Yeah.
being himness,
His
like
rhythm.
watching Maid again,
Yeah.
or
Right.
something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really good, and it's a very very weird spin on being a detective. Like,
Yeah.
he's in Key West,
Yeah.
and like the first episode, like the sheriff in Key West, like somebody finds an arm when they're fishing,
Right.
right?
Sure.
And Vince Vaughn's like suspended already,
Right.
and he wants him to like drive it to Miami
Yeah.
and have them like take it, like
Right. Right.
pretend this is your problem,
Yeah.
so that Key West does not
Right.
hit the news
Have
with
to answer.
we found an
Yeah.
arm, and
Right.
that's what happens here.
Yeah.
in Key West, or
Right.
whatever.
They've seen Jaws. They'll close the beach.
Right. And but the whole thing is just so weirdly Vince Vaughn-y. And like I said, it like really kind of snuck up on me, because like the first few minutes are like, yeah, all right,
Okay.
this is
Yeah.
fine, right?
Yeah.
But then you just like let him go for a
Right.
while, and he really kind of like hooked me.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
and it's not I'm not like the hugest fan of his, but
Yeah.
I like him fine.
Sure.
But it reminds me, and this is the only thing that pops into my head. So don't take it as though I'm saying Vince Vaughn is
Uh-oh.
like on this level, because I'm not. And apologies to Vince Vaughn, but you're just not.
Right.
But it's like if Robin Williams was in a show,
Yeah.
right? You only have to watch that for so long, and I don't care what the show. I don't care about
Right.
the show
I don't
or
care.
whatever. I just want to watch Robin Williams.
That's right.
Do
Be
Robin Williams, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of thing, but
Yeah.
like I say, I mean, Vince Vaughn is not there, but
Right.
but it's the same idea. Like he
Yeah.
just kind of like got his hooks in me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I just want to watch him, and it's
Him do this.
but yeah, it's a cool show. So check that out. Like I said, it's on Apple. And so speaking of Apple,
He's before you jump, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking of him. I was curious about that too, because I thought, boy, he's sort of silently slid into not obscurity or anything. Again, Vince watches the show, so we know. But like the last thing I saw him in reminded me of how great he is and how much fun I like watching him. And that was that film Freaky, where he was the body switching
Yeah.
kill. Like, and I'm like, what a dumb idea, but god damn,
but he's fun
look
to
at them
watch.
go.
Yeah.
And when he was being her, being him, and then I'm like, man, you got to do more stuff. And and it takes
Right.
time to get things moving. And maybe this is what he's been doing. And that's great.
Right.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a cool show. All
Yeah.
right. So like I said, keeping on with Apple Plus,
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
And actually, I'll throw this out because just sprang into my mind is they got the Time Bandit show,
Yeah.
which
Is that good?
I have only seen very little of it, so I'm
Okay.
just gonna say
I haven't seen any of it
I'm
yet.
just gonna say that. But I've heard a lot of people say it's really good.
Yeah, me too.
And what I've seen of it was really pretty fun and
Impressive.
cool.
Yeah.
So, check that out too.
Looks like it could be there.
And actually, in the future, maybe I'll be able to talk about that more. But I just haven't seen enough of it that I want
right.
to say one way or another. But
Right.
it's so far, it's very cool. Anyway, so the Instigators, we got Matt
Right.
Damon,
Yep.
Casey Affleck in.
Gary Oldman.
Oh yeah, Gary Oldman. That's right.
Gary Oldman
Slow,
isn't in the
slow
Instigators.
horses.
Sorry,
Right.
you said Casey Affleck, and that hit.
Yeah.
That was a weird
And
domino.
somehow that 6 degrees of
Well, that
Gary
went
Oldman.
Ocean's 11 into that just hit Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway, so it's Casey Affleck,
Sorry.
Matt Damon. It's a script that is co-written by Casey Affleck.
Yep.
As I understand it, he like hit his head on something and this idea came to him or something.
Oh, really?
Not really, but
Okay.
some sort of nonsensical
Makes sense.
story about
Yeah.
how he and whoever he co-wrote this with, like, just randomly like had this idea and was like, well, what if blah blah blah,
Right.
and then I don't know, kind of. Anyway, so the idea of it is it's a very doofusy heist
Yeah.
movie
Right.
where it feels like by the time you're done with this movie, it feels like some like crime show
Yeah.
that you don't know very well,
Yeah.
but has like 14 seasons,
Right. Right.
had this one episode that everyone was talking about,
Right.
and they decided to turn it into a movie,
Yeah.
like from the criminal's perspective or something.
Yeah. Right.
Like it's like
Right.
this goofball heisty thing,
Yeah.
where basically like everyone's an idiot, and
Yeah.
it's like this is our different level of being an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, the lead crime guy is basically also a moron,
Right.
and you're like, the one problem that I really have with the movie is them trying to sell me on these guys have been getting away with anything for a long time. Right? The two people who like are in charge of
Right.
putting together the heist, they're gonna rob the mayor,
Right.
or whatever. And so anyway, so Casey Affleck is a actual criminal, sort of.
Yep.
Although he's like accidentally a criminal because he took the rap for his brother, and then
on a whim,
and then now he's
got a record.
What's he gonna do now?
And a rep.
Right.
Now he's got no options, so he's got to live up to it.
And Matt Damon is this guy who is really like at the end of his rope, allegedly, right, and needs a certain amount of money,
right,
and what are you going to do,
right?
And somehow, I don't even remember, but he knows somebody who knows somebody who got him the in, or whatever.
It's weird. I don't remember how that happened.
And anyway, so they don't know each other before the before the action, but this one clown crime boss has this idea to rob the mayor, basically because Perlman is a corrupt mayor of Boston, and has been apparently for like decades, right, and so the whole scheme is that it's like election night, and after he wins, everyone in the city is going to be bringing him bags of money, because he's corrupt, and he's corrupt, and he has been forever, and everyone who would be bringing corrupt people money knows about it, and this is like the big thing. Apparently, you win the election, you
lotto ticket, cash,
and there's the
power.
There's the after win party.
That's right,
and that's where you pay homage
when
to
you
the pig and
secretly hand the envelopes,
bring your giant,
yeah,
whatever. Anyway, so the scheme is that they're going to rob it, and the whole theory is that Matt Damon and Casey Affleck don't need to know each other. They got, here's this job. It's going to take like 20 minutes.
Yep.
In and out to just make off with some of this cash before the armored car gets there in the morning, and then and it's on a wharf, so we're like in and out
Oh yeah, right.
on
The
water.
boats.
So we
Yeah.
take off on the water, and boom, we're done, and
Yeah.
then everybody goes their separate ways,
Right.
right?
Right.
And anyway, and then clearly things do not go according to plan,
Right.
and most of the movie is really just them on the run,
Right.
like for this one day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the whole thing, they're according to the plan. If things had gone right, they'd
Right.
have been done by 6:07 a.m.
Right.
Right,
Right.
and and things don't go right, and
Right.
it's just like the rest of the day,
Right.
right? And now we're
Cops are after them.
escaping,
Criminals are after
and
them.
the
Other
whole
hitmen.
thing happens,
Yeah.
by like it's still daylight
Right. Yeah.
at the end
Yeah.
of the movie,
Yeah.
and all this stuff happens, and hilarity ensues like 10 different ways, and
Yeah.
everything that can go
Right.
wrong does.
Does and goes
Whatever.
worse.
Anyway, okay, so that was like a long-winded explanation, but you may not have seen like lots of trailers of this Apple
Yeah.
release or whatever. With sometimes these things are like so out of the blue, and you're like, how is this like Matt Damon? And I never heard of it. It's
Right.
directed by Doug
Lyman. Yeah.
and it's like boom,
Lehman?
like out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Anyway, so just to not babble about the movie anymore. There were parts of this movie that I really, really liked.
Yeah.
And there were parts of it that I just was like, you're just not trying.
Right. Right. You're
and,
coasting.
and it's
Yeah.
and it's
evident.
irritating me.
Yeah.
I still gave it a 7
Yeah.
because
That's a little better than I thought you were going to do.
I had a lot of fun with the parts that I had a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
There was too much of it that because this is like a movie that it's very comedy
Yeah.
in it. Casey Affleck is like throwing out lines,
Yeah.
trying to get a laugh all the time. A lot of them are actually really good.
Yeah.
He can deliver them really well too.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that, like, at its core, has to be slightly more serious for it to be any better than like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah.
refused to go there because I feel like it was so entrenched in the comedy idea that it like refused to let itself be a little more serious. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I do.
it's like by the time we get to certain parts where they're like in danger,
Yeah.
or like dramatic stuff is happening or whatever, it's almost like watching like a sitcom where people get in trouble. You're
Yeah.
like, you have no investment in anything bad actually happening.
Right.
You're like, bad things can't happen or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it was just it it wouldn't dare take itself seriously enough to be a better movie to like move on to like another
Yeah.
rating level where it would even be possible to give it a higher rating.
Right.
Right. And which, I mean, kind of sucked because you've got people who can do really good stuff
Yeah.
on every side of this movie.
Right.
And I think anyway, it needed, another couple of passes at the screenplay.
Yeah.
And go, let's really actually like kind of deliver. By the time this movie gets to the very, very end, the very last like thing that happens where they're together, and I'm not going to spoil it or anything.
Yeah.
That should have been really cool.
Amazingly cool. Yeah.
And all the stuff that came before it just did not actually give you the right kind of, mojo
Yeah.
of making that hit and be interesting. It
Right.
was just kind of, that's what happens at the end, but
Yeah.
it had nothing behind it. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of scenes leading up to it where there is like funny stuff, and it is kind of,
Yeah.
there is fun and funny stuff happening, but it's so focused on, Casey Affleck getting to hit his line in just the right way,
Right.
instead of like, delivering anything, right?
Yeah.
There's one part where they're hiding, right? And, the bad guy like shows up,
Yeah.
because we're like double crossing them or whatever,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, as soon as he walks in, it's like Scooby-Doo or something,
Right.
right? It's like, I mean, I don't know how they get out of this, but I also don't care.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's
Right.
like, let's just move on to
Or
when they do.
and then simultaneously, I was thinking like they will, and it won't matter.
Right.
It's the same. It's the same disinvestment
Yeah.
that's happened there. Man, sometimes films like this are tricky for me because it's not a sequel. It's not an intellectual property of stuff. And then you look at the huge catalog of who's involved, and I can't remember. Maybe I am saying it wrong. Maybe it's Lehman or Lyman. I've always said Doug Lyman, but the guy who directed Swingers, Go, The Bourne Identity,
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, like Edge of Tomorrow, one of our favorite films the year we saw it. Like, you put that guy in charge and you put him back with someone like Matt Damon, and they made a hell of a great film with the Bourne stuff. I understand the real life baggage that people bring to Casey Affleck. Not everybody likes him, and they have reasons potentially for not doing so
Because of his real life.
because of his real life
Yeah.
issues that are settled and that are behind him. But still, some people, that's a big thing, and I respect the hell out of that. As an actor and as a performer, I love watching Casey Affleck in anything.
He's really
anything. When he's doing sort of sarcastic, dry, supporting things like in the Oceans films, when he's headlining a film that is such a gut punch on every level with Manchester by the Sea, it does not matter. One of my favorite films of all time. That's a big list, so I'm not trying to say it's like in the top 5, but is Gone Baby Gone.
Yeah.
He is absolutely A+, 110% perfect in that role. I have an expectation when you start putting these people all on the call sheet. I wound up giving this a 4.5, even though I feel like I wound up having 5.5 or 6 for fun. So here's the catch, right? Like, do you review the film you saw, or do you review the film that you didn't get? And in part, I think you have to review the film you saw, and I can do that. That's where I hit probably a 5. I think it's a very average heist film that is not backed by Ocean's 11 or Tom's 12 or whatever. It's a very small crew, and sometimes these films are fantastically fun. But when I get to the end and I'm like, that should have been so much better on every single level. Casey should have been funnier. The lines should have been speedier. Damon's character could have been more developed instead of a starring supporting role, but really just sort of like a by the numbers starring supporting role. Doug Lyman's films are almost always faster and punchier and snazzier, and this has all the things in there with crime and location that you would think, man, this is going to be fantastic. And it isn't.
Right.
It's just, and that's the way it is. Casey, the way I understood part of it is he's been looking for a comedic film, and not Dumb and Dumber like, but just something funnier to do. And everybody around him thinks that's a great idea because they all know him personally and they know how funny he is.
Right.
And how dryly sardonic, kind of sarcastic humor he has, but that can translate. So this film was designed and written, from what I've heard from reading and listening to Casey in interviews promoting it, to sort of get that going. And man, when it works, it's very funny. Like, he has some of the best killer lines, and he's supposed to. But man, what a dumb idea for this part of the story, and this is so cliche and derivative of that part of the story. And here comes Ving Rhames. He's the police guy who's going to come in and just blow everybody away. Really? If you tell me that in the Oceans film, if you've never seen the original and you just watch Ocean's 11 and you realize that these guys are going to walk out of this impossible situation after doing a mission impossible, like break into the Pentagon through the air vents and over lasers and all the stuff that you make up. Actually, all right, I kind of believe if you, and I'm blowing, I guess, the part of the film away, it's only been 20 years, right? But if you dress up as firefighters and you go in and you walk out with the money, I think that's pretty creative.
Right.
Here, these guys are trapped. The entire city's outside. The police force, the fire, everybody has them pinned down. And it wants to be Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They want to like have their Bolivian moment. I don't believe any of it in a film that is supposed to be believable.
Right.
And so I'm there. I was pretty frustrated by it, but I didn't hate it. It's not a film to hate.
Yeah.
It's just a bit disappointing when you realize what the potential of it probably could have been. And not every film, we've talked about this before, every time I see a Harrison Ford film, it shouldn't be on par with Indiana Jones or whatever his best work is for you. The same with De Niro. Like sometimes they just make like a film.
Right.
But when you put this many people together who know how to make great movies, I expect better than what I got by the end of it.
Yeah, I think in this one in particular, there's just too much potential being sidestepped.
Yeah.
It's not like I think people can make a movie that's only supposed to be a 5 too,
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
even if there's a bunch of really good people in it.
Yeah.
But in this case, it really is just like this was so much better in someone's head than what actually ended up happening. There's so much of it that kind of shifts gears when it shouldn't.
Really drops into a gear. Yeah.
Doesn't know what gear it should be in at various times. When you start this movie, and like I said, I'm still championing it.
Me too. I want you to see it.
I think it's really fun.
Strangely, yeah.
And I think you should watch it.
Yeah.
But there are so many things, and I just have to say again, when Casey Affleck is in the right part of this movie, given the right line, and the way he delivers it, he is really good.
Yeah.
And not only that, there are several times where he delivers a funny line in a really good way, right? Yep. There are a lot of times when he delivers a really funny line in like a Bob Newhart way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funnier because of it.
Right.
And that's hard to do.
That is hard to do. But and
there's a reason that there is no new Bob Newhart.
Right.
The comedian, right?
Right.
I mean, because it's hard
shoes.
It's hard to be that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's lots of great stuff. But when you watch this, and every once in a while we will talk about, and often people think it's weird, but we will talk about like the order the film is shot in.
Yeah.
Because it actually means something sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like this movie feels like the first thing they did was Matt Damon with his psychiatrist, which that's something that happens super early in the movie
anyway, but
right? I mean, that is like basically the beginning of the movie, but it feels like they filmed that.
Yeah.
And even though they have these huge names, they don't have like the world's biggest budget, right?
Right.
But they filmed that, and they were like, okay, that's good,
right?
But actually, we're making this other movie over here.
Right.
So for the rest of it,
we're
doing this, right? Because that whole scene is not the movie you get anymore.
Right.
After that's over.
That's right. That's right.
Once he actually meets Casey Affleck, and we start talking about this stuff, like that movie's out the window. Even though his psychiatrist comes back several times.
Right.
But she's different, he's different.
Yeah. The motivations
are
off.
In the same setting at all.
Yeah.
And we are not doing anything with, like I said, the kind of seriousness that's happening in that movie. You finish this movie and then start it again.
Yeah.
And you'll go, wait, what?
Yeah, right. That's not
what happened there?
Yeah.
Like I said, there is I think the ending to this movie is maybe in like the top 20 like spoiled endings of movies, because it's a really good ending that does not do at all what it ought to be able to do,
Yeah.
and instead ends up doing something else, right?
Right.
And what it is you take something that could be really good, and all of a sudden, it's like the ending of a hour-long TV show.
Right.
Not a movie.
Yeah.
It's like if this were the movie that kicked off the TV series of them partnering up to fight crime
then,
in a new show or whatever. It's like, well, but that's not what that's supposed to be.
Right.
Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a missed opportunity in a lot of ways. That it's like, if this movie, I haven't actually said this in a long time, but if this movie were worse, it'd be better.
Right.
Like,
if
it didn't have all of that stuff where as you're watching it, you're going, why are we doing this instead of this? Right. It would be better because I wouldn't have to spend so much time thinking
about why you're not doing what you should be doing.
I would just be able to enjoy the funny stuff. And Matt Damon, because we've talked a lot about Casey Affleck, but Matt Damon is actually really good in a lot of the stuff that happens in here.
Yeah.
In some of it, I didn't love it, right?
Right.
There are a few scenes where I'm like, this is kind of Matt Damon phoning it in right now. But in a lot of it, he was really good.
Yeah.
It's just that I wanted him to be doing something else and be good at that.
Yeah.
But what he was doing was really good. And they're both, just insanely watchable,
especially together too.
They will even when there's parts of it where you go, this big Rame stuff is is
what a joke,
almost moronic, right? When he goes into the bakery, and the guy there is like, you do what you're gonna do, and he's like, okay, he starts breaking like displays. You're like, what kind of heavy is that guy?
Right.
Like,
that could be anybody.
Literally, I will like
Chief's dog.
Mess up your donuts.
I'm gonna throw salt in your donuts.
Yeah. I mean, like,
don't you do it, man. Yeah.
And then not only that, but a few minutes later, the guy's on the phone and he's like, well, he came by.
Right. Yeah.
Well, how is it? Is it bad? And he's like, it's bad. And I'm like, I mean, you seem fine.
Yeah.
So how bad is it?
Yeah, right. You're talking through a full set of teeth.
It was very weird.
It's strangely derivative of all the films that, it builds on, whether it's Butch Cassidy, whether it's The Town, whether it's, just all the goofy things gone wrong, whether it's Analyze This, where you got a criminal trying to do straight things for goofy reasons. It's and then you drop the therapist in the middle who's constantly analyzing the situation for comedic value while everyone's being shot at,
which she is really good too.
She's really good in it too. And that role is like, I actually like the characters. I like the overall idea very much. I just think that sometimes the scenes that they use to get the characters to where they had to be for the next thing are just not the right scenes to be using. Yeah. And in fact, especially with Matt Damon's character, who I felt was pretty underdeveloped. We just are looking at Matt Damon and we know and that's hard anyway, because I don't care what role you're looking at. You're like, well, that's Tom Hanks.
Right.
Like, I don't buy him being anybody else. It's just Tom in World War I or whatever. But at least in this resolve, he felt too much to me like the character in the books and in the films that have been done a couple times, Porter. Like in Payback, when Mel Gibson is playing Porter, he takes on the mob because he just wants his $66,000, and everyone's like, "I'll give you your $200,000." He's like, "Hey, it's just 66.
Right.
You can keep the change." Like, that whole thing is Matt Damon's character, and they go through it to an extenuating scene where the mob guy the main criminal who's like, "Look, if we score more than this, you don't want any." He goes, "I just want my $32,000." He's like, "Deal."
Right.
And then you're like, that guy's nuts. I'm not doing anything with him.
Right.
If he's going to turn down extra money because all he wants is enough to pay his parking tickets, to hell with that.
Right.
But again, they think that derivativeness is creative and fun. And part of the film works best because Matt Damon and Casey Affleck literally grew up with each other.
Right.
So there's a natural chemistry there that they could just read the phone book and it would be fun in places. So,
and there's also there are certain things in the movie that are, that will throw you, but they conveniently don't happen long enough for it to be a super problem.
Right. Yeah.
And including the car chase scene, which I think was
Yeah.
It was so funny in a weird way, but it was funny in like a outside the fourth wall, I'm a movie critic way, because it's like you have a chase scene, you have to have a gimmick for how they get away. Right. If you have a chase scene, you can't just like have them drive long enough and like get away.
The others ran out of gas or something. Right. No, that wouldn't happen.
Can't have that.
Yeah.
So they have to like do something, and they do kind of at the end, at the last second, magic, basically. It's like how they get away or whatever. But before that part, like how are they not getting caught now?
Leading to
and
that.
now
Yeah.
and now.
Right. Yeah.
And all of it is like nothing.
Right.
He's just driving.
Just driving. I know these streets.
Just go.
Zoom.
Like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, and there's cops all around them, and you're like, okay, well, he's totally like done for now.
Yeah.
No. I just kept going.
Plot armor.
How'd you get away? I just kept going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if they don't stop me, I'm not stopped.
That's right. That's right.
And it was goofy, but it conveniently, like I said, it didn't go on too long. All right, so we got to jump into this other movie.
We'll do it quick. Yeah,
quick. But I do want to say, because I realized last week when we did oh Christ, what's that movie?
Deadpool.
When we did Deadpool, I realized after the fact that I had not mentioned Channing Tatum. And, and the fact that he's Gambit, right?
Yep. Right.
And I'm just going to say this because we're not going to go all the way into the movie or whatever. Channing Tatum as Gambit is maybe in the top 15 dumbest things I've ever seen.
God.
Gambit.
He's wanted to just so long.
As stupid.
Oh no.
As anything could be. And I'll tell you, I mean that like before you even see him doing it, or whatever. Right? After you see him do it, it's worse.
Right.
He's awful. He's got nothing to do with Gambit. There's no universe in which he is even a passable Gambit. If he was one of the multiverse Gambits, and I mean he is actually.
He technically
is.
Right.
If we would have just said in the movie, he's from like ludicrous universe, or whatever, where this is like, he's from Bizarro. This is Bizarro Gambit, and you'd go, all right,
right,
got it.
But to say he is the Gambit,
but no, he's like Gambit.
He's Gambit,
and oh my God, is it stupid?
Yeah,
and it gets worse after the movie's over, because he was in an interview where he was talking about how Ryan Reynolds would say stuff like, I don't want to be able to understand you in this scene.
Right.
So just like really
lean into it. Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that is the worst cover story.
Right. Good try.
For your
good try.
But doesn't work at this.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So Jackpot.
Yeah, we'll do Jackpot quick.
I'm going to do this like very fast, which is all the movie deserves anyway. It's
yeah,
but like by design.
I get it.
Mean, I get it. This movie knows that it's stupid.
It knows what it is.
Revels in it.
Yeah,
right? And oddly enough, this is one of those. This is one of those movies that you either like it or you don't, and nothing matters in the world, right?
Yeah,
this is like a movie somewhere in that same idea of like My Hudson Hawk and Your Ford Fairlane, right? It's like
it could be there,
there's only so much you can actually defend it,
right, and then you're just like, hey,
but you like it,
you take it,
and you go,
it is what it is,
and you go, hey, man,
I dig it,
and this is one of the few movies that I did not really like it, but I didn't mind it so much,
enough to
that about halfway through the movie I was like, what the hell's happening?
Right.
Like, this is just as stupid as it could be.
It's real donkey. Yeah.
Simu Liu shows up.
Yeah, right.
And he's practically wearing a sign that says, I don't know, this will be fun.
Yeah. Right.
Like
I miss my friends.
And it's not like he's bad in it, because you can't be bad in it, right? Like you couldn't hardly not act well enough do this movie.
Right.
I mean, because look at what he's supposed to say,
Right.
how he's supposed to say it, right? I mean, it's like anyone could do that.
Right.
But when he shows up, I swear, it is like if he had his own subtitles,
Right.
where
Right.
where he could just like chime in, like the actor could just, like pop up video or something,
Right.
go, look at my great suit.
Yeah.
Like he's just show up for a day and do what?
Yeah.
Like he's just he like exudes like this whole, I don't know, sure.
I'm game.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so the movie is about California passes this law in the not too distant future,
Right,
where if you win the lottery winner is announced through these magic cards that everyone gets. Right,
to play.
In order to play, you like put your thumbprint on it and you're entered or whatever. And if you win, like the announcement happens at like, let's say 10 a.m. or whatever, right? But it's always the same time or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you live till sundown, then you actually win and get the money.
Right.
But anyone is allowed to kill you and claim the jackpot.
Right.
And except you can't use guns because we wanted to, that was like,
there has to be something.
That was like our obstruction for this. It was in the plot writing contest. That was the obstruction. You can't use guns or else, that's a whole other movie and everyone's just shooting at you, trying to snipe you.
Right.
Whatever. But so you can't do that. But like everyone just is on board with this. And that's just the law. And what we have is the young woman from Away who just showed up and somehow did not know that this happened.
Right.
And did not know that there was any such thing, which I think is one of the worst gambits this movie tries to pull off.
Right.
Is the whole
work hard.
I don't know, man. My mom was sick.
Right. I've been paying attention to her, taking care of her.
Movies.
Right.
And I'm like,
didn't know anything about the biggest state in the country doing the biggest life-threatening thing for the biggest amount of money ever. Sure, but okay.
Right. Anyway,
yeah.
And these protector people have been clearly doing this for years. Right. This is not like the second run of this, and it's like just happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so then you got John Cena. Is and the woman is Aquafina, by the way.
Yeah, we can do this quick.
But John Cena is he has decided his job is going to be, I'm jackpot winner bodyguard, and I will like keep you alive until sunset. And obviously other people have this job too, including Simu Liu. It has like a whole company of it.
Yeah.
And they know each other and have like a backstory of whatever. At a certain point, he like calls him for help, and and Aquafina's character at no point has any idea what's going on.
Yeah,
and it takes a long time before she just kind of is on board, and goes, "What the hell's happening?" And anyway, and so we have this goofy premise. Hilarity ensues. People are constantly trying to kill her. John Cena's trying to keep her alive.
Yeah.
It's a movie that, as I said, I mean, it's purposely a dumbass movie. It's like stupid and silly, and maybe there'll be fun or something. It's like, it's like a few notches down from like Airplane or something, right? Like,
or Cannonball Run, or just something mindless that's supposed to be fun.
You don't watch Cannonball Run and go, I don't know, cars don't work that way. How come the cops don't stop them? It's like, this is not, it's not that kind of movie where you're asking any questions. Anyway. I gave it a 5, and I was very surprised to give this movie a 5.
Yeah.
Especially after the first 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes should be like 5.
Yeah.
And we should just go, like this movie tries to sell me on its premise for so long that it is just absolutely terrible writing, even in a movie like this where what we're practically going for is terrible writing.
Right.
But this is a movie where you just go, this is the premise, go.
Right.
You don't like tell me about the premise over and over. I don't want this whole trying to sell her on believing that the premise exists.
Yeah.
Like there are parts like after many, many people have tried to kill her, she keeps like kind of going, nuh-uh.
Right. Yeah.
Like
it's hard for her to believe it. Yeah.
What has to happen? Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it was like, it's a very different world that you're trying to make Cannonball Run in.
Yeah.
So it's a very different movie.
Yeah.
But it was like fun enough. This movie easily could have been like one.
Yeah.
Right. Because if this movie goes slightly wrong, then I hate you.
Right.
And
yeah. Right.
and everyone or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And it didn't really go that right because it could have been even higher. Again, this could have had just a different perspective driving the comedy and the screwballiness and not trying to make everything like just especially goofy and dumb when you just move on. Right. Like, movies like this remind me of, in a very weird way, like people remember the A-Team way worse than it was.
Right.
I was like, if the A-Team was as bad in as many ways as you think it was bad, it wouldn't have lasted. Even if there wasn't
anything to fill it. Right. Yeah.
It's and if this movie had just, I mean, not that the A-Team was great or anything, but
it was better than the memory of it serves.
But it was better written than people think it was,
especially for its time.
Because it was, it was like Cannonball Run.
Sure.
Also was pretty well written.
Yeah, it was a villain of the week,
being an exact
procedural
thing, whatever. And this movie just didn't have like kind of the chops behind it to be anything better than. I mean, I think I give it a 5. Yeah. And I think that's the best it could ever possibly get. Because that's built into its own construction.
We don't have a lot of time, and I've got to, we got to go anyway. So I'm going to be pretty quick, but I'm going to be a little crude in how quick I am. In 1 minute, I can do this. If somebody gave you $10,000 to watch the colonoscopy of a stranger and then reneged on that deal, that experience would have been better than watching this movie. That colonoscopy footage would have been better than this movie and would have been funnier. Aquafina, which I think is a hilarious nickname for this film. I like John Cena a lot. I like him in almost everything he does because I think he's game. I think he's got charisma galore, not quite like on The Rock's level, but I think he's got an awful lot to offer, and I think he elevates almost everything he's in. I loathe Aquafina, and she's amazing in The Farewell, so it's not an incredible bias, but she is absolutely horrible in this film. And why she keeps getting cast in things, I have no clue what footage she has or whose cousin she belongs to. She brings this film down to a level that is absolutely stupid, and the plot, which is fun because I loved Jake Johnson's film, which is almost the exact same thing. It was my number 2 film of last year, Self-Reliance, where a guy gets $1 million if he can live 24 hours with people trying to kill him.
Right.
So I'm up for the plot, too. This is just Self-Reliance versus The Purge. It's just so stupid, and I felt dumber watching it. This is one of those rare films. Yeah, I'm watching the time. I got to get out of here. It was making me hate it more the longer it went because it's an hour and 45 minutes, and it just made less sense. And Aquafina just makes it awful every chance she gets, but she's in it and she's absolutely horrible. I came so close to giving this a 0, but there are probably 5 lines in the whole film that I actually sort of laughed out loud at. And I thought, is that a half a star? Don't do that. I don't mind giving 4.5 or 5.5 or 9.5, but I don't like giving half. It's either 0 or 1. I gave it 1 begrudgingly. This is a complete piece of crap.
So you either love it or you hate it.
And I hate it. So anyway.
I think that, I mean, we'll get out of here.
We can do more next time, but
really quickly. Yeah, we might come back to this, I guess, if we feel like we have to. But I think that the movie has, just real quickly, there's like thirds. of this movie,
Turds.
not like time
No, I
wise,
know.
but you know, like how a
It does
movie is
break
like
in.
half of the movie is being this movie and half of the movie is
Mhm.
being this movie. And this one has like three parts. Like
Yeah.
a third of the movie is trying to be this, and a third of the movie is trying to
Yeah.
be that, and a third of the movie is trying to be like Aquafina fan service.
Yeah, it is.
And every part of that, I agree, is
It's awful.
really horrible.
Yeah.
Every time I think Aquafina seems like she just gets to riff or
Yeah, and that's also part of the
or
film that I hate.
or go
Right.
off script and we'll film this like 10 times
Sure.
and you just do whatever, which happens in movies all the
Sure.
time or whatever.
That's easy.
But every time that happens, I think it's really bad.
Yep.
And you can tell how bad that is because you get like the closing credits, like
I was going to say
that are all
it's all of
horrible.
what you're describing.
Right.
Everything. And
it's all like, you know, her going off or her
Right.
and someone like going off.
Yeah.
And it's all terrible.
It's all terrible.
It's all like
And
really bad
if
stuff.
a person could watch the end bloopers, if you just could fire it up to watch the credits, not because there's an end credit scene too, but if you just give a minute in and you watch all the bloopers, and if you think that's funny, you're going to like this movie.
Right.
Paul Feig, and again, I'm sorry, I gotta go, but Paul Feig certainly loved Melissa McCarthy and did things like this with her after Bridesmaids and Spy. Paul Feig did this film, and I just looked at Paul Feig's filmography a little bit ago, and I'm like, man, the guy's done like 15 films, and only 2 of them are good. Yet in my mind, he's like the top echelon of comedic directors. Right. He's actually apparently not that great, except when he did The Two Great Things. But his Melissa McCarthy-ism has carried over to his Aquafina-ism, and he seems to think that's the way to make a film, and someone has to take that chair from him and say, no, it isn't.
Right.
But
I think also this movie is just, there's such a feeling in this movie of, you know, it's like a vacation.
Yeah, it does.
Adam
you said
Sandler,
this. Yeah, we're going to go to Turkey for a couple of weeks. Come with us. Yeah.
Right. And you can just see that like happening like throughout the movie. The way that Simulu's character exists and the story behind it is because we had this building.
Yeah. And we can use it. So.
Right. And we could use this building and let's do stuff with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's really, like I said, obviously hit or miss.
I'm worried that was going to be our biggest divide.
If you can have like fun with this and don't hate Aquafina as much as
I do, then you might be able to
it's an okay time, right? It's like there's a fun parts of it, and you know, you'll have a better experience than you do.
Absolutely,
sure.
Absolutely.
But overall, also, I mean, very missable.
No, I know. Yeah, no, don't rush out to see this unless you really want to hurt yourself or others.
All right, we got to get out of here, and I don't even know what's coming next week.
I don't either.
So we will. We'll see. Thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.